Welcome back to Inside the Philippines. If you're new here, this is the channel where men who came to these islands looking for something, love, a fresh start, a reason to get up in the morning, sit down and tell you the truth about what they found. No filters, no fairy tales, just the real thing, in their own words. Tonight's man is Peter, 57 years old, from a coal town called Witbank in South Africa, Emaleleni, they call it now, where he spent 30 years underground, digging out the seams that keep the lights on. Big fella, quiet. The kind of man who doesn't say much because he's spent his whole life listening for the sound a mine makes right before it decides to kill you. He'll tell you himself. He thought he was too old, too hard-headed, too careful to ever end up as one of those men, the ones we talk about on this channel. And here's the thing about Peter's story. It's not the one you're expecting, because the woman in it, she wasn't lying about everything. That's what makes this one sit with you afterward. It would be easier if she were just a villain. She wasn't, and Peter knows it. It starts the way a lot of these stories start. A lonely man, a bar, and a decision to take a woman back to his hotel on the very first night. You've heard the warnings about what happens next. Peter had too. He thought he knew the script. What actually happened wasn't in the script at all, and it cost him more than he ever planned to spend. Though not, maybe, in the way you'd guess. Before we get into it, after hearing so many of these stories on this channel, we put together a guide covering what we've learned from all of them. The patterns, the warning signs, the practical stuff. It's linked in the description if you want it. No pressure. All right, here's Peter, in his own words. Yeah, so, where do I start? I was a miner. 30 years, near enough, in the collieries around Witbank. Coal. My father did it, his father did it, and I did it. And that was just how it went where I'm from. You go down in the dark, you do your shift, you come up, you wash the black off your face, and you go home. 30 years of that. My knees are shot, my back's rubbish, and my hearing's not what it was. But I'll tell you what, I never once got a man killed on my watch. 30 years, and I brought every one of them up. That means something to me. Still does. The reason I say that, I want you to understand what kind of man I am. Or was. Careful. You have to be. Underground. You learn to read the ground, listen to the timbers, watch for the small things before they become big things. A man who talks too much, who moves too fast, who doesn't check twice. That man gets people hurt. I never trusted that type. And I never thought I'd be that type either. Then, Marietji died. I'm not going to sit here and give you a whole speech about her. That's not me. But I'll tell you this. 31 years married. She was there when I came up out of that hole every single day. And then, one morning, she's standing at the kitchen counter, making the coffee, and she just went down. Heart. Gone before the ambulance even turned onto our street. 53 years old. And the thing nobody warns you about is the quiet. I could handle a mine roof coming down around my ears. Handled it more than once. But the quiet of that house afterwards, man, that finished me. The kitchen with nobody in it. The braai out the back I stopped lighting. Because who lights a braai for one? You cook meat for one man, and it just feels like, I don't know, feels like admitting something. So I sold the house. People said, don't make big decisions in the first year. And they were right, probably. But I couldn't do it. Living in there was like living in a museum of a life that was already over. Every room had her in it. So I sold up, took the money. After everything, house and my provident fund, I had somewhere around 3 million rand put by. Call it 160,000 US dollars for you folks doing the sums. More money than I'd ever had in my life at one time. And no reason on God's earth to get out of bed. That's the part that gets you. Hey, not the sadness, the pointlessness. A man works 30 years for a reason. You provide, you look after your own, you build something. Take the person away and take the work away. And what's left? A big empty fella in a rented flat, watching his hands not know what to do with themselves. Now, there was a bloke from my old crew, younger than me, Dayon, married a girl from Cebu years back. That's in the Philippines, for those who don't know. And Dayon would not shut up about the place. Every time I saw him. You should go, Peter. Man, it's different over there. I'd wave him off. I wasn't interested in, all that. The bar stuff. Old men making fools of themselves, chasing girls half their age. I'd seen the videos, same as you're watching now. I knew the stories. I'm not stupid. But Dion kept using this one word. Family. It's a family culture, Boet. Not like here. Over there, family is everything. And I don't know why, but that word got its hooks in me. Because that's what I'd lost, see? Not a girl. A family. A kitchen with somebody in it. Somebody to cook the meat for. So I told myself a story. I told myself it was just a holiday. Just a change of scenery. Get some sun on my face. Look at something that wasn't those 4 empty walls. I told Dion that. I told my sister that. I even told myself that, right up until I booked the ticket to Cebu. Just a holiday. That's what I said. Yeah. Well, I'll say this much for the man I was, sitting on that plane. He was so sure of himself, so sure he was too careful, too old, too clever to get caught by any of it. Arms folded, watching everybody else, certain he knew exactly what he was walking into. 30 years reading the ground for danger. And I still walked straight into the one thing I never thought to check for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about Cebu. Cebu hits you in the face when you step off the plane. Not like a punch, more like walking into a wet towel. The heat, and then underneath the heat, this smell, diesel, and something frying and something sweet all at once. I'd been in mines my whole life. Thought I knew heat. This was different. This was wet heat that just sat on you and wouldn't shift. I got a grab from the airport. That's the taxi app they use over there. Works better than anything we've got back home. I'll give them that. The driver talked the whole way. Friendly, man. Everyone's friendly. That was the first thing that put me on my guard, if I'm honest. 30 years reading people underground teaches you that when everyone's smiling, somebody wants something. Or that's what I thought. Turns out, sometimes people are just friendly. I didn't know which was which yet, and that not knowing follows you around the whole time. The traffic. I've never seen anything like it. Jeepneys packed full. These long painted buses with people practically hanging off the back. Tricycles buzzing in between like flies. Everybody hooting, and nobody actually angry about it. Back home, if you hoot at a man, he wants to fight you. There it's just conversation. That's how they talk to each other on the road. I'd booked a hotel near the middle of things. Nothing fancy. I'm not a fancy man. Aircon, clean sheets, a little balcony looking out over a basketball court where kids played till all hours under one flickering light. There's basketball courts everywhere in that country. Everywhere. Every little gap between buildings, there's a hoop. First day, I did nothing. Walked. Ate alone. There was a Jollibee near the hotel. That's their fast food. The big yellow bee. They love it more than we love anything. And I sat in there with a bit of fried chicken and rice and watched families come and go. kids in birthday hats, old couples sharing a meal, and me, big South African fella on his own in the corner. And here's a thing nobody tells you. The loneliness is worse over there. You'd think going somewhere new would help, take your mind off it. But being lonely in a crowd of happy strangers is worse than being lonely in your own empty house. At least at home, the quiet was mine. Over there, the whole world was laughing, and I wasn't part of it. One nearly changed my flight that first night. Nearly went home. I want you to know that. I was that close to just going back. Now I'd done my homework. Understand? I'd watched the videos, this channel, others like it. I knew the script. Old Kano comes over, meets a girl in a bar, gets his heart and his wallet cleaned out, cries about it on YouTube. I'd seen it 50 times. I sat there thinking, that's not me. I'm not here for that. I'm too old and too clever for that. Yeah. Famous last words? Hey. Second night, I couldn't stand the four walls. So I walked out, and I ended up on Mango Avenue. If you don't know Cebu, that's the Strip. Bars, music, lights, girls in the doorways calling out. Now I'll be straight with you, because there's no point telling this story if I lie in it. I knew what Mango Avenue was. I'm a widower, not a saint. But I wasn't looking for love. I want that on the record. I just wanted noise. I wanted to sit somewhere that wasn't silent and have a cold beer and feel like a person again. San Miguel. That's the beer. I had a San Miguel Pale Pilsen, sweating in the glass before I'd even picked it up, and I sat at the edge of this bar with the music too loud and the aircon dripping, and I just watched. And that's where I met Rosa. She didn't come at me like the others. That's the thing I noticed. The other girls, they swarm. Big smiles, hand on your arm. Hey, Joe, buy me drink. Rosa was just sitting a few stools down on her phone, looking a bit tired, actually. Bored. Like she'd rather be anywhere else. And I don't know what made me say anything. Not like me at all. But I said something stupid about the music being loud. And she looked over and laughed. A real laugh, caught off guard. Not the practiced one. She came and sat by me. 34, she said. Softly spoken. You had to lean in to hear her over the karaoke bleeding in from next door. Some fella absolutely murdering a Whitney Houston song. She worked at the bar, she told me, straight up, no games about it. But only for now. She had a contract coming through to work in Dubai, hotel work. She was just waiting on the paperwork. Waiting and saving in the meantime. We talked for 2 hours. About nothing. About Bohol, where she was from. She showed me a photo of her little girl, 5 years old, gap in her teeth, standing in front of a Bahay Kubo, one of those little bamboo houses. About the food back in her province. About my mining, which she actually asked questions about, real questions, like she wanted to know. Nobody had asked me a real question in 2 years. And when it got late, ja, she came back to the hotel with me. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. That's what the title of this whole thing is asking, isn't it? What really happens when you take a woman back to your hotel that first night? I'll tell you what happened. Nothing like what I braced for. I'd steeled myself for the transaction. The bar fine? The morning ask? The whole business I'd been warned about. I had it all planned in my head. How I'd stay firm. How I wouldn't be a fool. And instead, she sat cross-legged on the bed, eating the leftover lation she'd brought in a little plastic bag. And before she ate it, she closed her eyes and said a small prayer. Quick. Automatic. The way a person does when they've done it their whole life and don't even think about it. That got me. I don't know why. Marietje did the same thing. Grace before every meal, even a sandwich. 31 years. I sat there watching this woman I'd just met say grace over a bag of pork in a cheap hotel room, and something in my chest just went, cracked a bit. The next day, I tried to give her the bar fine, whatever you call it, the money, and she wouldn't take it. Pushed my hand back, said, "No, Peter, not like that with you," and looked almost hurt that I'd offered. I know how that sounds. I know exactly how it sounds, sitting here now, telling you. The oldest move in the book, maybe. Refuse the small money so the big money comes easier later. But you weren't there. You didn't see her face. This one's different, I told myself. And man, I needed that to be true. That's the part one understand now that I didn't then. It wasn't that she was such a brilliant liar. It's that I was ready, desperate even, to be told a different story than the sad one I'd been living in. She handed me a reason to hope, and I grabbed it with both hands and didn't check the ground first. 30 years I checked the ground, every single day. That week, I didn't check it once. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. She never asked me for a cent that first week. Not once. If she had, I think some part of me would have woken up. But she didn't, and so I was the one doing the offering. And that's a very different feeling. A man who's asked feels cornered. A man who offers feels like a big man, feels generous, feels like himself again. I extended the hotel. 3 weeks in the end, from what was supposed to be 10 days. And I paid for things, Ja. Of course I paid. But understand how it started. It started small and it started sensible. Meals. We'd go eat, and I'd pick up the bill, which any man would. A carinderia she liked. This little roadside place with the food in metal trays behind glass. You point at what you want. Best food I had the whole trip. Hand on my heart. Better than any of the fancy places in the malls. She'd order for both of us in Cebuano, and the aunties running it would fuss over me, the big Cano, and Rosa would laugh at me trying to eat with the heat of the chili. Then, a phone. Hers was cracked, screen all spiderwebbed, and I bought her a new one at the SM. Wasn't top of the range. Maybe P12,000. Call it $80, 90. Nothing to me. And she needed it, I told myself. How's a person meant to get work with a broken phone? Then the big one. The one I dressed up in my head as the sensible thing. I told her to stop working the bar while I was there. Just for the 3 weeks. I didn't like the thought of her in that place with other men when she was with me. Pride, partly. So I gave her money to cover what she'd have made, so she wasn't losing out. And that's the one where the line gets blurry. Hey, because is that a boyfriend looking after his girl, or is that a man paying for a woman's time and telling himself a nicer word for it? I didn't ask myself that at the time. I know which it was now. It was both, probably. Most of it's both, I've learned. That's the part nobody wants to hear. All in across those 3 weeks. The meals, the phone, the bar money, bits and pieces, a dress she looked at too long in a shop window. I reckon I went through about P40,000. That's what? R11,000. $700, near enough. Over 3 weeks. For a man with 160,000 in the bank, that's nothing. That's less than I'd have spent on a proper holiday in Cape Town. And that's exactly the trap, see? Every single amount, on its own, was reasonable. You could look any one of them in the eye and say, yeah, that's fair, that's fine, a man can afford that. It's only when you stack them up at the end that you see the shape of the thing. But you're never looking at the stack. You're only ever looking at the next small, reasonable thing. Now, I want to talk about the family. because this is the part one got wrong in a way that had nothing to do with being cheated. About halfway through, she took me on a video call to her mother back in Bohol. And her mother, old woman, headscarf, sitting in front of one of those bamboo houses with chickens walking through the shot. She wept. Actually wept. With happiness. Thanking me. Calling me a good man. Saying God had sent me. Rosa translating. Both of them crying. And me sitting there like a great awkward lump not knowing where to put my face. And I ate it up, Boet. I'll be honest. After 2 years of an empty kitchen, being wept over by a family who called me a blessing, man, that filled something in me that had been empty a long time. That's the thing about that culture I didn't understand yet. Family is everything, but everything means everything. It's not like back home where your family's your wife and your kids, and you see the cousins at Christmas. Over there, the family is this huge web. Parents, brothers, sisters, the sisters' kids, cousins, the whole lot. And they hold each other up. When one does well, everyone eats. They've got a word for it. Utang na loob, debt of gratitude. You do someone a kindness, they carry that debt in their heart. They pay it back their whole life. It's beautiful, in a way. It really is. But here's what I didn't work out until much later. When you're the rich foreigner, and to them, any of us is rich. Doesn't matter that I was a coal miner. I might as well have been a king. You don't join that web as a member. You join it as the one who holds it up. That's your role. That's the seat they give you. And the love can be completely real, and that can be your seat at the same time. Both true. Rosa told me about it herself, actually. Told me she was the eldest, that she'd been sending money home since she was 19, that half of what she made at the bar went straight to Bohol, to her mother, to her daughter, to a younger brother she was putting through school. And I respected that. I did. Where I'm from, you look after your own, or you're not a man. I heard her say she carried her whole family on her back, and I thought, yeah, that's a good woman. That's my kind of person. I didn't hear the other thing underneath it, which was, and now you can carry it instead. That's not me calling her a liar. She wasn't lying about any of that. Every word was true. The eldest daughter really does carry the family. The mother really was poor. The daughter really did have that gap in her teeth and really was waiting in Bohol. All of it real. It's just that real and expensive turned out to be the same thing. Anyway, 3 weeks went past like nothing, and on my last night, sitting on that little balcony with the karaoke going somewhere down the street and a San Miguel going warm in my hand, Rosa cried and asked how she was supposed to go back to that bar now, after these weeks with me, go back to those other men. And I heard myself say, Don't go back. I'll look after you. Easiest thing I ever said. Felt like the most natural thing in the world. I flew home the next morning already a man with somebody again. That's how it felt. Should have asked myself a hard question at that airport. What exactly was I flying home to arrange? Didn't. Just looked out the little window at the islands getting small and felt, for the first time in 2 years, like I had a reason to go back for something. Back home in Emalilani, the flat felt smaller than when I'd left it. Same flat. But you go from 3 weeks of somebody laughing in the next room to your own 4 walls, and the quiet comes back louder than before. So I did what any fool in my position does. I picked up the phone. We went to video calls every day. Messenger, mostly. That's what everyone uses over there. Facebook this and Facebook that. The whole country lives on it. Good morning message when I woke up. which, with the time difference, was already her afternoon. Good night when she went to bed. Her face on the little screen last thing before I slept. And man, I won't lie to you, it was the best part of my day. 60-odd years old and grinning at a phone like a teenager. My sister noticed, asked what had got into me. I didn't tell her the half of it. Now the money settled into a shape here, and this is the part where one want you expat fellas watching to really listen, because this is the stage that got me proper. Not the holiday spending. This. Rosa had stopped working the bar. For me, she said, because I'd asked, and because after those weeks together she couldn't stand going back to it. And I believed that, and I still mostly believe it, actually. But that meant she had no income. And she's the eldest, remember? Carrying her mother, her daughter, the young brother in school. So of course, I said I'd help while she sorted out the Dubai thing. We landed on $25,000 a month. That's about our $7,000. Near enough $450, whatever you want to call it. For rent, food, her keeping her family going. And I sat there with my calculator like the careful man I always was, and I thought, that's fine. That's less than I spend on rubbish here. A man on my kind of savings can carry that for years and not feel it. And that number never went up, I'll give it that. The P25,000 stayed P25,000. It was everything around it that grew. Because once the money's flowing monthly, Boet, the road's paved, the pattern's set. You've become the one who provides, and providers get asked. That's just how it works. Little things at first. Her daughter's school shoes. A birthday for the mother. Could I send a bit extra so they could have a proper meal? A lechon, the little pig. Course I could. I liked being able to. That's the thing nobody tells you. It felt good. Being needed felt good after 2 years of being no use to anyone. Then the pasalubong business. I learned that word fast. You go anywhere, you come back with gifts, and it's not optional, it's expected. And not bringing anything is a real insult. So I started shipping these balikbayan boxes, big cardboard boxes you fill up with tinned goods and chocolates and clothes and toothpaste, the lot, and send by sea to the province. Everyone abroad sends them. It's normal. Cost me maybe $8,000, $9,000 a box by the time it was packed and shipped. And I sent a few. Corned beef and Spam and Nescafe and second-hand clothes for cousins I'd never met. Was I being taken for a ride? See, that's what you want me to say. And I can't say it clean. Because sending a box to your girl's family in the province genuinely is the normal, decent thing over there. Millions of Filipinos working abroad do exactly that for their own blood. I wasn't being scammed out of a balikbayan box. I was doing what a man in my position does in that culture. It's just that I was a man in that position for a family I'd met on a phone screen. Then came the mother. Diabetes. Which, that's real, understand? That's an epidemic over there. All the rice and the sugar and no money for doctors. Rosa called me crying one night, proper crying. Not the pretty kind, the ugly, snotty kind you can't fake easy. Her mother's foot had gone bad. Infected. The doctors were talking about taking it off. An amputation if they couldn't get her treated fast, and the hospital wanted money up front before they do anything. That's how it works there. No money, no treatment. Public health care is a queue and a prayer, and even that costs. She needed $180,000, about our $50,000. Call it $3,200 US. And I want you to sit with that number for a second, because it's the first one that should have made a careful man stop. $3,000 in one go, sent by phone, to a hospital I couldn't see, for a woman I'd met once on a video call. for an operation I had no way to check was even happening. The old me, the one who checked the gas readings twice before every single shift, who never once trusted a number he hadn't seen with his own eyes, that man was screaming somewhere in the back of my skull. I sent it that same night. G-Cash. Took about 4 minutes. Because what's the alternative? Say no, and maybe an old woman loses her leg. And it's on you. For the sake of $3,000 you've got sitting in the bank doing nothing? You can't. Or I couldn't. She called me her hero. The mother got on the phone a few days later, foot still attached, weeping, thanking me. God bless you. God sent you to save our family. And I felt 10 feet tall. That's the ugly truth of it. It didn't feel like being robbed. It felt like being a good man. I never did see a hospital bill. Never saw a receipt, a doctor's name. Nothing. Asked once gently, and Rosa went quiet and hurt and said, did I not trust her? After everything, did I think she'd lie about her own mother? And I backed right off. Apologized even. Me, apologizing for asking where $3,000 went. I think about that a lot now. The way she went quiet. The way asking a normal question got turned around, till I was the one in the wrong. That's a move, that. Whether she meant it as one, or whether it was just pride, I still can't tell you. Both, probably. Always both. My mate Dion, the one who got me into all this, he asked me one Saturday, straight out, how much are you sending her now, Peter? And I got defensive. Snapped at him a bit. Told him it wasn't like that, she wasn't like that, he didn't know her. He just looked at me. The look you give a man who's already decided. Should have listened. Didn't. Because by then, Rosa had started talking, soft and dreamy on those late-night calls, about a house. Somewhere for us. Somewhere for when I came back. On the family land in Bohol. And God help me, I liked the sound of it. The house is where I stopped being a man who got a bit carried away and became a man who was properly in it. Up to your neck in it. Understand where my head was. I'd sent the hospital money. The mother kept her leg. The whole family treated me like something holy. And Rosa's talking every night about us having a place. Not a mansion. Nothing grand. A modest concrete house on the family land in Bohol, where her mother was, where her daughter was. Somewhere for me to come to that wasn't a hotel. Somewhere that was ours. And here's what that did to a man like me. 30 years I dug things out of the ground. Took things out. I never once built anything that stood in the daylight. And here was a chance, near the end of my life, to make something. A house with my name on it. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Not with my name on it. I'll get to that. She said it'd cost about $1.5 million to build. That's roughly our $400,000. Call it 27,000 US dollars. For a whole house. And I remember thinking, that's mad. That's nothing. You couldn't build a garden shed for that back home. Of course I could do that. Man builds a home for his family. That's not a scam. That's just what you do. So I started sending the money in stages. Foundation first. Then the block work. Rosa sending me photos on Messenger. Rebar sticking up out of concrete, bags of cement, a couple of skinny fellas in slops mixing it by hand in the sun. Progress, see? I could see progress. That's what kept me sending. Every payment, a photo of a bit more house. Now, here's the part where you're all shouting at your screens, and you're right to. The land. The land it was being built on was family land, in her mother's name. Because, and I knew this, I want to be clear, I'd read it, I wasn't ignorant of it. A foreigner cannot own land in the Philippines. Full stop. Can't be done. You can own a condo in a building up to a point, but land? Never. Not a square meter of it. So every rand I was pouring into that house was going into a structure sitting on ground I could never, ever own. Building the man a house on another man's plot, near enough. I knew that, and I told myself the thing every one of us tells himself. It doesn't matter, because it's for us. It's for the family. Why would I need to own it? We're going to grow old in it together. You don't ask your own family for the title deed. That's the sentence that costs you everything, by the way. You don't ask your own family for the title deed. Write that one down. I flew back over about 8-9 months into all this. Had to see it. Had to see her. And Bohol. Man, Bohol is beautiful, I'll give it that. The chocolate hills and the little tarsier monkeys with the big eyes, and Alona Beach where the water's like glass. For a few days, it was everything the videos promise. Her, me, her little girl calling me, well, calling me something that wasn't quite Papa, but close. Church on the Sunday. The whole family in their good clothes, everyone proud to have the Kano in the pew. Then she took me to see the house. And it was a shell. Concrete blocks. No roof on half of it. No windows. No doors. A bag of cement gone hard and useless in the corner where the rain had got it. Less than I'd paid for. A lot less. I'd sent, by that point, close on $900,000. 16,000 US dollars. And I was looking at maybe half a house, if that. I asked about it. Careful, like, not accusing. And out came the reasons. Cement had gone up. A typhoon had set them back. And a cousin, there's always a cousin who'd been managing the build had borrowed some of the materials for his own place. And it was all very awkward and shameful, and could we not make a fuss, because it would bring shame on the family. Saving face. That's the thing over there. You don't confront. You don't make the fuss. The problem just sits there, unspoken, and everybody smiles around it. And a straight-talking witbank man who's used to sorting a problem head-on, he finds himself just swallowing it. Nodding. Not making the fuss. Because you're a guest in it all, see? Even when it's your money. So what did I do? You know what I did. I sent more. Another few 100,000 pesos to finish it properly. Because I'd already sunk 16 grand into it, and walking away meant that 16 grand bought me a roofless box of blocks on land I didn't own. Sunk cost, they call it. I call it quicksand. The more you've put in, the more you can't afford to stop, so you put in more. And that's the exact mechanism that pulls you under. Every extra payment felt like protecting the last one. The brothers started getting familiar around then, too. Rosa's younger brother, the one I'd been putting through school, calling me Kuya now. That's like big brother, a respect thing. Bit too comfortable with it. Floated the idea, all casual, that he really needed a motorbike to get to his classes. A habal wouldn't cost much, maybe $70,000. And Kuya, you know how it is. And I said I'd think about it. Which for me was already halfway to yes. Something was turning in my gut by then, though. I won't pretend I felt nothing. At the fiestas. And there's always a fiesta. Roast pig, the videoke going till 3 in the morning, the whole barangay drinking my red horse. I'd sit in the seat of honor, the big, generous Kano, and I'd catch myself doing sums in my head instead of enjoying it. Sums. At a party. That's not a man in love. That's a man who's started to feel the ground move under him and doesn't want to admit what it means. I think about that fiesta a lot. The brother getting properly drunk over in the corner. Watching me. Looking like a man carrying something heavy he wanted to put down. I put it down to the drink. Told myself he was just a young fella who couldn't hold his tandwe. I'd been reading the ground wrong my whole time in that country. But that night, I'd finally started to feel the timbers creak. I just didn't know yet which way it was going to come down. It was the brother who told me, in the end. After all the money, all the months, all the careful reading of a situation I'd read completely wrong. It wasn't clever detective work that did it. It was a drunk young man with a bad conscience, last night of that trip. The fiesta was winding down, the videoke finally quiet, most of the barangay gone home or asleep in plastic chairs. I was sitting out the back by myself with a warm red horse, doing my sums again, when the brother came and sat next to me, swaying, reeking of tanduay. And he sat there a long time not saying anything, which for him was strange, because he never shut up normally. Then he said, "Kuya, you are a good man." And something in the way he said it made the hair on my neck stand up. Because it wasn't a compliment. It was an apology dressed up as one. He couldn't look at me, staring at his own hands. And it came out in pieces, half Cebuano, half English. But I got it. I got all of it. There was another one, an Australian, older fella from Perth. Been sending money the same as me, the whole time, the same as me. Thought he was the only one, the same as me. And there was a house being built for him too. Or maybe, and this is the part that still turns my stomach, maybe it was the same house, the same concrete shell, sold twice. I never did find out for sure which it was, and I decided I didn't want to. The brother kept saying sorry, kept saying his sister wasn't bad, that the family was poor, that I didn't understand how it was, that everyone was just trying to survive. Discarte, he called it. That word they have. Hustle. Making a way where there isn't one. And he was crying by the end, this boy whose schooling I'd been paying for, crying and telling me to go home. "Kuya, go home and don't send any more." I didn't shout. People expect that I shouted. I didn't. 30 years underground, when the worst happens, you go very quiet and very calm, because panic is what kills you. So I just sat there, finished the warm beer, said thank you to the boy. Meant it, actually. I confronted Rosa the next morning. Had to. Couldn't just vanish. And here's where it refuses to be a simple story. The kind where you can hate the woman clean and go home righteous. Because she didn't deny it. She could have. Instead, she just crumpled, sat down on the step of that half-built house and cried. And this time, I couldn't tell you if it was real or not. And I've stopped trying to work it out. She said the Aussie was before me, was finished, meant nothing. Said she did love me. She wasn't lying about that, but that she couldn't let her family drown. And a woman like her, poor, eldest, a child to feed. She does what she has to do. Both men were real to her, is what I came to understand. The love and the discard living in the same body at the same time, not even fighting each other. Just both true. "I do love you," she said, "but I cannot let my family drown." And the terrible thing, the thing I've never told anyone until now, I believed her. I still do. That's what makes it worse, not better. If she'd been a cold-hearted con woman, a pure villain, I could have packed that up neat and carried it home as anger. Anger's easy to carry. But it wasn't that. It was a frightened woman doing a hard, wrong human thing to keep her people fed. And she happened to do it to me. There's no clean feeling to be had from that. Just a mess. So I added it up. On the flight home, I added it up properly. The way I should have been adding it up the whole time. The 3 weeks of holiday minding. The monthly P25,000 across the better part of a year. The Balikbayan boxes. The hospital that I'll never know was real. The house that was half a house on land I never owned and maybe wasn't even only mine. The school fees, all of it. Somewhere around 30,000 US dollars. Call it $500,000 rand. Now, I want to be straight, because I've watched fellas on this channel lose everything. The whole pension, the house, left with nothing but a suitcase. That wasn't me. I still had most of my money. I'd been spending out of a big pot, and the pot wasn't empty. 30,000 out of 160. I could survive it. Financially, I'd get up off the floor. But that's not really the number that hurt. You want to know the number that hurt? Nearly a year. A year of my life, of good mornings and good nights, of feeling like a man with somebody again, of building a future in my head brick by brick. And none of it was standing on solid ground. Not the house, not the family, not the U.S. I'd been building on sand the whole time. Me, a man who spent 30 years knowing exactly what unsupported ground does to the men standing under it. I didn't say goodbye to her, in the end. Not properly. There was no big scene at the airport this time, no crying at the gate. I just got in the grab, and she stood there in the doorway of that unfinished house getting smaller, and I looked out the window at the chocolate hills going by, and I let it go. Left the house where it stood. Left the whole thing where it stood. You can't fight a war like that in a foreign country anyway. Foreigner. No land rights, no marriage, no paper with my name on anything. What was I going to sue for? A shell on someone else's dirt. I'd have spent another 20 grand on lawyers to lose slower. Sometimes the bravest thing a man does is just walk away from what he's already lost and not spend good money chasing the bad. Yeah, that's what the truth cost me, in the end. Not everything, just enough. I've been back in Imala Laney about a year now. Small flat, smaller than the house I sold. And yeah, I know how that sounds. Sold a whole house at the start of all this, and here I am renting 2 rooms and a kitchenette. There's a joke in there somewhere. The kitchen's got somebody in it again, mind. Just me. Turns out that was always going to be the answer, and it took me $30,000 in a year to hear it. I don't hate her. People want me to. Dion wants me to. That's my mate, the one who started all this, and he still feels guilty. Though it's not his fault, he found a good one and just assumed the whole country was full of them. When I tell the story down the pub, the other fellas wait for the part where one call her every name under the sun, and it never comes, and they look almost disappointed. Where's the anger, Peter? And I haven't got any to give them. That's the strange thing. I've got sadness, plenty of that, but not hate. Because here's what I worked out, sitting in that small flat over a lot of quiet evenings. She wasn't lying about everything. That's the whole thing. That's the whole lesson, right there. If she'd been lying about everything, it would have been easy. But the daughter was real. The gap in her teeth was real. The poor mother was real, diabetes and all, whatever the truth of that hospital bill. The prayer before she ate was real. You don't fake 30 years of Catholic habit for a fat old miner you met on a Tuesday. And I still think, that some corner of what she felt for me was real too. It's just that real and paid for were the same thing, in the end. And I couldn't tell them apart, because I didn't want to. That's on me, not on her. On me. So here's what I'd say to you, if you're a fella my age watching this with the light off, lonely, with a bit of money, and an empty chair across the table. And I know you're out there, because I was you. The love can be real, and it can still bleed you dry. Both at once. Don't wait for her to be a cartoon villain before you protect yourself, because she probably won't be one. And you'll hand over everything waiting for a proof that never comes. The minute you become the provider, you stop being the man. You become the wallet the family's fond of. And they can be genuinely fond of the wallet. That's the trap. The fondness is real. It just doesn't change what you are to them. And the money. Set the number before you go, the number you can lose and still stand up. And when you hit it, you stop. I didn't have a number. A careful man, 30 years checking gas readings twice, and I went in without a number. Have a number. Don't build on land you can't own. I mean that as the literal advice. A foreigner cannot own land in the Philippines, not a square meter. And a house on her family's plot is a gift, not an investment. So call it that in your own head before you send a peso. But I mean it the other way too. Don't build your whole heart on ground that isn't yours to stand on. I, of all people, should have known what unsupported ground does. 30 years I knew it. Forgot it the one time it was my own life holding up the roof. I hope the little girl got something out of it. I do. If some of my money went to that kid's school shoes and her books, then it wasn't all wasted, and I can live with that better than I can live with hating anybody. That's it. That's the whole sad, stupid human thing. I went looking for a kitchen with somebody in it, and I paid 30 grand to find out the only kitchen that was ever really mine to fill was the one back home. Yeah. Anyway, that's my story. That's Peter. And you heard it. No venom in it, no neat villain to point at. That's what makes his story sit differently than most. Because here's the truth this channel keeps running into. The Philippines isn't Thailand, and the trap here often isn't a cold-blooded scam. It's family. Real family. Real obligation. Real love. Tangled up with real poverty and real desperation, and a lonely foreigner walking into the middle of it with a full wallet and an empty chair at home. Utang na loob is a beautiful thing when it's yours to give. It's a very expensive thing when you're the one everybody's grateful to. And a woman can love you and still not let her family drown. Both true. That was the whole lesson, and Peter paid to learn it, so you wouldn't have to. He got out with most of his savings and a hard-won bit of wisdom. A lot of men in his chair don't. They wait for the cartoon villain, like he said, and they hand over the pension while they're waiting. Stories like Peter's are exactly why we put a guide together. Everything we've learned from the men who've sat where he sat and shared what went wrong, all the patterns and the warning signs and the questions to ask before you send a single peso, gathered in one place. It's in the description if it's something you need. Look after yourselves out there. Especially you fellas watching alone tonight with the light off. You know who you are, and you're the ones we make these for. Think with the careful part of your head, the part Peter forgot to bring with him, and you'll be all right. Thanks for watching. This has been Inside the Philippines. We'll see you on the next one.